Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. You guys know who it is. This is Tony Lynch. I am the host of this podcast, and yes, we are your number one podcast for bringing you stories around death, dying, and grief, all the missiness that comes in between, with some amazing people out here doing some amazing things, out here changing people's lives one heartbeat at a time. And as always, this is a live stream, so if you have any questions or comments, put them in the comment section, right? We'll be sure to answer them as we go. But most importantly, I would like to say that this is for educational purposes only. Now, without further ado, guys, help me welcome my next guest, Mr. Fred Simpson, to the show. Fred, how you doing?
I'm doing okay, Tony. Just staying busy.
Yeah. We was talking about that before, right? Got to stay busy in these damn times, man.
Oh yeah, we don't want the idle. What is it? Idle hands, the devil's workshop, or idle minds? Yeah.
Well, both of them can be. You know what I'm saying? Both of the devil's, the idle mind is the devil's playground, and idle hands is the devil's play toys.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So before we get started, man, introduce yourself to the audience. Tell people who you are, where you're from, and about the work that you do.
I'm Fred Simpson, and currently last year I lost my wife, and I kind of went into situations and everything that I'd never had before in my life, and a lot of it came upon me that things I didn't think were going to happen, like grief, but in that process and through that process, I ended up writing a book, and then, besides the time that I'd been in the hospital and stuff, I'm mobile, so I'm getting out and doing meetings and church. But the book is Cyber Time.
Yeah.
And it was an endeavor that at the age of 69 decided I'm going to write a book and share it with people to give them tools to combat scammers and hackers, and if not combat, is maybe be aware of, so they don't fall into the trap. I fell into it for a bit. I was susceptible, but then more intelligent minds came along, or maybe some help from friends, is to realize that, hey, I had enough information and enough tools that I could pass on to people. And whether you want to put it into age category or not, but some of the older people that aren't familiar with internet, social media, or at least as much as understanding what's going on. And so went through that, and that was a trip in itself. It was a kind of crazy time, understanding how to write a book and how to get it, with the publicist and get it to a point where you could get it published, and then in the process of marketing. But it did get published, and was first published on Amazon and Kindle Direct January 1. But most of the trials and tribulations and what I've gone through is grief, and understanding grief is a lot of people may wave it off, or may want it to feel pain, kind of like they're putting themselves in that position, but it isn't. It doesn't need to be. And once you understand the 5 phases of grief and go through that, and there's a book that I did find, Tony. It's I'll push somebody else's book, but I've got portions of it in mine. Is Dark Clouds, Deep Mercy, and it's Mark Rogup is the author, a preacher. And so it did another step for me. It got me closer to God and religion. I was raised religiously, but I really hadn't practiced. Once I got into church and understanding the book, that I knew I needed a lot of work, and helped me with that. And God was there to assist me, and also my pastor and a couple of friends, close friends that become grief partners and in our own little grief group, and discuss these things that hit people after, I was married 46 years, and loss of someone through that, I understand can really hit you numerous times a day. And I didn't think you're going to play macho and stuff, and you say, well, hey, nothing's going to affect me, but it does. And once you understand that and go through that and come to the realization that, God's lament and the help of that is that you can tackle grief, and not necessarily tackle it. Let's say you meet it head on and you come to terms and you understand what you need to do with that. And what you need to do with that, what helped me was, the 4 truths in the Bible. And I got through that and just understand that, much like my process for becoming sober, is that God is there to help. And how you contact him and how you become communicating with him is another thing. And the book calls out, well, maybe you need to get a hold of him the best way you know how and communicate, and and even holler for his help. But then I realized Tony, that I was 33 years clean and sober, and there was somebody there those 33 years to help me along the way. And that one was God, and all I had to do was ask him, and he'd help carry me some more. And that, and much the same as you can't let your will be the guidance. It needs to be God's will to direct you and direct you in the right direction. It's because me as an alcoholic and the compulsive tendencies and all of that I understand now is the reason that I drank is because my will was not the way to go. It was not. And, but today I can turn that, and I can turn that grief and go through the 5 phases, but you turn it and say it's a celebration. It's a celebration of life. Whatever you're grieving is to turn it and say, and put it in the context that was God's will and it happened, and it's celebrate the fact of it. Don't take the negative side. Is let it be a part of you, and a good part and a positive part in your life, and say, hey, that's the best thing that happened to me, and that's what happened. But it's also in the past, so you need to live for the present and get things going. Because at one time, it's got on your apps and your phone, there's certain pictures that pop up from your history, on Google, and that really used to take me for a loop. But anymore, I can say, hey, I forgot even about that, and I can save it and share it, and just think about the memories, and the memories don't hurt. It isn't painful anymore. It's being able to enjoy them and then share them with family and friends and say, hey, look at us. This is where we were. And I've shared this book with numerous people, because this book is another thing. Even people in AA and stuff, is to understand you can work there's parallel paths and lists that help us work through problems in our life, and we can use those to our advantage. And I'm currently gave one the other night to a person that I'm sponsoring, and we're going to go through it along with number one priority. You got to get at least the first 5 steps of AA. So I'm back in there getting engaged, and I didn't do that for a while, and that didn't help, things either. I need to give back, because there's service part of the of being in AA is you've got unity, recovery, and service. And so I've decided that I've got to take, which is now 34 years as of April, and I've got to take that knowledge and pass it on and help others out. And in helping others, it helps me even more. So that's enjoyable, and I'm taking and helping those people. And and of course, dealing with human beings, there's always the downside of ones that aren't going to make it yet and need to make a decision, and that happens, and that's part of life. That's part of being human beings, right, Tony?
That is. It's what do with it, right? It's definitely exactly what you do with it. You mentioned a few things, and I want to touch on this, right? Because I know I'm going through the grieving process. Everyone will experience it, and everyone will perceive it in different ways. Like you've experienced grief through the loss of your wife, and my heart is with you on that. I've never experienced that. I've experienced all the other ones. So anywhere from grandparents to friends to siblings to son to parents, I've experienced all of those things. And trust me, I've been working very hard not to complete this holy trinity. I'm going, no, I'm not going to do that, because for one, there's a reality of life that I do live by. I realize that this is all temporary. And coming from a place where I have experienced that deep embedded pain, I do not want anyone else to experience that. So I do live my life in a very secluded way where, I have to keep people at arm's distance, because I understand that life is temporary, right? That's what you do with it. Now, most people will look and go, well, that's not, well, you have to look at the way that I see it as well. I can still enjoy it. I can still love people in a different way, just not in a physically intimate way. I can love people mentally. I can love people spiritually and emotionally, right? I've disciplined myself enough to go, the physical aspect of it doesn't really matter, right? Because I don't understand it anyway. So, but there's a deeper intimacy that you can give people. Now, when we talk about the stages of grief, right? The 5 stages, the 5 pillars of grief. What is your opinion about the 5 stages of grief? It's because we got anger, we got denial, we got bargaining, we got acceptance, we got all the stuff that comes in between. And the reason why I say this is because when I think about the 5 pillars of grief, I understand why it was written. And what I found is that I was able to separate them, right? And I can associate my emotions and really categorize them within the 5 pillars. And what I found is that there's more stages to it, or more aspects to it than just the 5 stages. And to educate yourself on it, right? And but to be truly honest with yourself, like, okay, I'm in this stage of bargaining. Why am I bargaining? Nothing's going to change. And I think what happens a lot of times, and I could be wrong, I think what we're bargaining for is the exchange of pain for love, and not understanding that they both run hand in hand. In your thoughts and in your opinion, what do you think about that?
Well, bargaining to me, and let me make the analogy here, Tony, is that once again it runs a parallel path with alcoholism and the big book, 12 steps, 12 traditions, but it runs as bargaining is what you're trying to do is justify. You're trying to justify a certain way that you're thinking, and in alcohol, it was justifying drinking or a means to do that. And in dealing with grief, it's justifying having, let's say, stinking thinking, right? And instead of positive, it's allowing you to delve into the negative, and that's what you're bargaining for, and that's no bargain. You should say, "Hey, no deal. We can't do that," and is to get away from that and say, "There's no bargain here. You're just dealing with God and His will and listening to God. You don't have to bargain." So that's how I worked through it and stuff, Tony. So I didn't have to get to the point where, hey, you're not going to bargain anymore.
Yeah. And now, in your journey of grief, when did you arrive to that conclusion? Because now I'm speaking from a place where I was an alcoholic too, right, for over 20 some years. Alcohol was my go-to to numb the world out, to forget about or try to forget about things. And I found it to be a catalyst to everything else. And what I mean by that, it was a catalyst to violence. It was a catalyst to making excuses of why life was the way that it was, except for and instead of leaning on my belief system. Because at that time, my belief system was wrecked, right? I used to have a model when I was back a long time ago. Now, and I say this to say this. I was raised in a very religious family. We was raised Southern Baptist. My grandmother had me in church Wednesday, Friday, Saturday night, and Sunday morning, right? Whenever I was with grandma would be like, "Come on, we're going to church," and everything. And I was the kid that always got my butt whipped in church because I was always standing up looking at people and popped me on my butt. Boy, you need to sit down. And then she put the book in my hand, like, "We on this page." And I pretend I was reading the pages. And then, I'm a little kid. I had the book. And I never really understood it, right? Because you got a kid, you gave me a book and I don't know how to read this thing, So I pretended, right? And grandma was like, "Did you get something out of it?" And I could look at her and go, "Yes, ma'am." Then what did they tell you? Told me not to beat up my sister. Type stuff, So as a kid, this is how I grew up, right? And it wasn't a bad thing. I didn't understand where it was going to put me later on in life. And what I mean by that is because for a large portion of my life, Fred, I was a violent individual. I didn't care about people, and because I perceived people didn't care about me. At least I didn't think so. I didn't find out till later on that people could care about me. I thought I was cursed. I used to always talk to God. I go, "God, if this is the way that it needs to be, then let me be alone. To stop bringing people into my life, please. Because it always ends up the same way. It always ends up, people are going to leave me. So I don't want to do this forever. Let me just live a very secluded life. I will walk this path. I'll stay out of people's way. I won't even talk to anyone, And I didn't understand what God was doing. And so nowadays, I sit back and I say, the last time I really spoke with God, like really, really spoke when I speak with Him every day. And I just said, I just want to be your friend. I really just want to be your friend. I want to sit down and have conversations with you, like really good conversations. I want to talk to you like a true friend. And I want you to tell me where I go wrong, because I need that from you, right? If I do something, I need you to go, "Hey, Tony, man, I got your back, right? But you're messing up. I need you to tell me this, and I want to be able to tell you the same thing." right? You know what I'm saying? And I think when you strive to have such a deep, intimate relationship with God, it changes the dynamic of how you perceive everything else. Like I love the people that I'm with. I really, truly, honestly do. But I love the relationship that I have because it's a funny relationship, right? Me and God, we argue all the time. I already told him today that he needed therapy. So, you know, but when you think about the alcoholism and things like that, what what are your thoughts um, on that path of alcoholism and finally deciding to say, I don't want to do this anymore. Like this is really destroying my life because after over 20 times of being homeless, I had to pinpoint the common denominator and say alcohol. Alcohol was the thing that I kept going to, and it was the thing that I leaned into that kept me that that uh, that put me in a position to lose everything because I didn't prioritize life over alcohol and women.
Right.
I didn't prioritize, what I'm saying, life over any of those things. It was alcohol, women, what I'm saying, et cetera. Let's keep it moving. And it became a very cold place. No emotion, no, not really too much of anything, right? You know what I'm saying? Very, very empty, very void, um, very just direct, keep it moving. You got to fight this one out. You got to survive. But
Right.
most importantly, the most important thing that I realized is that no one was going to come and save me. And I never really once looked at God and asked God for help because I went, why would you help me? Why would you help me? Have you not look at what I've done?
Well, I mean, I come to the realization, and then that's the first step that of Alcoholics Anonymous that you have to do 100% is you got to understand that alcohol had made your life unmanageable, and that you were at that point that you needed to make that change. And I add to it that there's another thing that needs to happen is to understand that really you may think you have a choice, but I can't operate that way. I need to come to the realization that my life was unmanageable and that if I continued, I was going to die. It's that simple. It's not a choice. It's not a choice what you're going to do. I look at it, if I continue with alcohol, which is poison, and what it was doing to my body and my mind and all that, if I went back out, I'm going to die. Just pure and simple. But you were talking about the effects and stuff, Tony, and how close you come to, saying, the bargaining and where you're in denial and all this, and that process along with alcohol is to come to that realization. I came to that realization, in alcohol after step 5, when I admitted to God and to another human being the exact natures of my wrongs. And in step 4, I piled them up, and oh man, I had a pile of issues, which is you're cleaning house, you're taking all those issues and you're putting them down, and then in step 5, you're telling another human being those, and God, and He's allowing Him to take those and take them on His shoulders and not yours anymore. But and the point that with the grief and the 5 phases that I came to a realization, Tony, was actually chapter 6 in the book I read, and like I briefly said before, talked about the truths, the 4 truths in Lamentations and Jeremiah. And that's what he uses. And those 4 are, number 1 is God's mercy never ends. Number 2 is waiting is not a waste. And number 3 is the final word has not been spoken. And then 4 is God is always good. And these are all lamentations that are in the Bible that help me realize that, hey, I just need to turn it over. I need to turn it over like the 5th step in alcohol, is turn it over to God and let him carry it. Because me carrying it was either going to cause me to drink or going to cause me pain and suffering. And I don't want to do that. And I need to, I'm 70 years old. I've got a lot of life left. So, the pluses to that is I'm 34 years clean and sober, and I'm 8 years smoke free. So I kicked that, and then I've lost about 140 pounds. So being more active and everything, but I've also found out, Tony, is like we said before we started the program, is to stay active. If I were going to go into retirement and go golfing and that kind of stuff, I wouldn't make it. And I don't think there's a lot of people that do. You need to stay active. And so I wrote a book and I stayed active that way. And now I'm contemplating going back out to work and stay active that way. Because in my career, I've built 22 power plants, and I have, and I'm good at it. Yeah. So I said, hey, I need to go back out and do something I really like. And I'm one of these people that I had a job that I really loved. And then it's just like the saying goes, if you love your work, you're never going to work a day in your life.
Very true. Very, very true.
And so still able to do that and active and don't want to be a retired old folk or whatever. And so I'm going to go back out and do what I know is the best thing, and I can build, and I build a lot of power plants as well as process plants across the U.S. Is just now weekly, daily. It's a matter of staying in touch with God and staying in touch with my program. So weekly I go to church, and then I go to meetings and hitting at least almost a meeting a day on the average, and then getting there to be there to give and share, just like we're sharing here. Is the thing to communicate and help other people is by hearing that and saying, hey, I was there, I did that, and I can get over that. I can conquer that, and we're very good at either going negative or staying positive. And I watched another movie and my wife and I used to give it to everybody. It's called The Secret. It's law of attraction.
Yeah.
And then there's no negatives anymore. Excuse, I shouldn't even have said that. Everything you're saying is positive. There's no is not a word. And that you can visualize anything you want. And as long as you keep doing that, it's going to come true, and God's going to help with that. So, and just by staying positive is a plus there too. It helps us all out and helps everybody out. So, pass on those kind of things that really helps.
Yeah. As a younger gentleman, and listening to you, I've learned a few things myself along the way, as far as knowledge, which I'm constantly turning into lifelong wisdom. That is my goal. I'm searching for wisdom throughout the world because I want to understand life and people. I want to understand the way that God has designed this world to be. So I know what I can have a deeper understanding of what I'm called to do. Right. That's the reason why, that's one of the reasons why I always wanted to have a relationship with him, because I always wanted to find out, since I've been on this path, what it is that you want from me, so that I may be able to do that. And that's why I say one of my goals is to have I want to be God's friend, right? I want to be his friend. I want to be able to have deep and better conversations with him,
Right.
just so we can laugh, and I can have somebody I can talk to on a level where I may not feel comfortable with talking to someone else, but I know the answers that I may get, I may not like, but I know they're going to be the answers that I need, right? I need that truth in that realm. I really do. I need that truth. Um, just to, just to be better in this journey. Now, you wrote a book, Cyber Time. Let's talk about Cyber Time. What influenced you to? I know we talked about the scam, so we're gonna make sure that people know where to find that at. So, what influenced you? I know you said you had the experience with the scammers and everything, and I think this is a huge thing, because most scammers will take advantage of people in their most vulnerable times. And the words may sound good, and people will get wrapped up into it, and often fall into the line of saying, "Oh, this is somebody I can trust." What was your influence? What was your experience like?
Well, there were many after the fact. Let's say up to a certain point, I decided to, get in touch with my old school friends and family and all that stuff. Then I ended up on social media and the different platforms.
Mhm.
And those different platforms are the ones where you get introduced to the scammers. And they've got, just like I say in the book, there's as many scams as there are stars in the sky, Tony.
Yeah.
And they'll come up with it, but you can categorize them. You can say, okay, there's romance scams, there's finance scams, and then there's other ones that aren't on social media, like the telephone and just out there, just people coming to your door, and it's everywhere in our life anymore, unfortunately. But I found, and what I was susceptible to at the time was romance scams, and I did pay out money, and it was considered myself a very intelligent person, but also empathetic and thinking you're helping somebody else, and it really isn't. It is them getting money and for coming up with a story and tricking you out of that money. And then that's when I came to the realization that that's why I needed to write a book, so people understand and can identify. I've got like 10 points to identify if they're real or scam, where you can use that, and you can find out for yourself. The other one is don't even be on social media, but that's kind of hard anymore, and still go around. But there, there was the romance finance, and then there's crypto. Big one is cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and gold short trading.
Mm.
Those are the big items that they make a lot of money on, because they're dealing with people and people's greed. They greed on making money and making it quick, and that's what they play on. And there's hundreds of thousands. I've heard of people losing millions of dollars. And so I also, after I came to the realization I was going to write a book, I got into some of these groups that were scammers and had phony platforms to buy gold and crypto on, and presumed that I was going to send them money, but I didn't. And so I have all that information, and I eventually I turned it over to FBI IC3 is what it's called, the Internet Cyber Division, and Federal Trade Commission (FTC). Turned it over to them and a few of those, so they could go after them, and they broke them up. But then I'm also getting involved with. I went to, well, it's been about 3 weeks ago now. I went to a presentation by the state of Iowa, the Attorney General's office, and the it was very good, and it was they put it on, and they're going around the state and explaining the different types of scams to people. A lot of it to be the elderly. There's the insurance division also of the state of Iowa, and the bureau manager. I got to talk to him, and I talk to him regularly and see what other kinds of scams are out there. It's just like the fake Publishers Clearinghouse and the fake Facebook award and those kind of things. But they had some good pointers, some very good pointers, and what good pointers to be is do not, buy into the idea that somebody's going to steal your house.
Yes. Yeah.
Because they can't do it readily like they try to put the scare tactics to you. Maybe this is kind of a legal scam type deal, but they can't take it. These 4 individuals who put on this presentation, they said they'd never seen it in their career, anybody's house getting stolen that way. So they're after the fact. They're gonna do what anybody else would do. And then also a good point is to freeze your credit. Everybody's got the 3 credit bureaus that keep your credit, and they also have a whole history of your financial history, credit cards and all that they will sell. It isn't like it's yours and not going to get let go, because that's their business. So if you can freeze them and send a notification to get it frozen, so they can't send that information out. That helps, plug the gap on your own financial information and getting out to the web. So they've got lots of pointers that that I'm going to start putting on my LinkedIn site and my social media sites to say, here's some pointers for the week, and maybe, and hopefully that catches on and people will see it and understand that, hey, to be aware of those kind of things is, be forewarned is to be forearmed. So.
Very true. Very true.
But yeah, those kind of things. At least now I understand the problems, and then you go further into this, the different categories, Tony, and the big one here that's really becoming huge is the AI. The AI has come into play, and we see it in everything we do, right? They're changing and to be AI generative and jobs, companies getting that involved, how they go about things and data mine. But they're also using that to the point where you can get addressed by somebody you think you're talking to a real person or a commercial, and it's not.
Yeah.
They can take any more right now. They can take 3 words that you say and 3 glimpses of you as far as video, and they can turn that into you talking. and you selling cryptocurrency and you selling gold short trading or bitcoins, and I know two people myself that have had that done to them. And and that's just the start of things. I mean, AI is just basically started.
It has, and it can be a wonderful tool if you know how to use it. I've been educating myself on certain things in AI. But before I get into that, we have a couple comments from my friend Regina wants some book over here on Instagram. She says, "Thank you so much for writing a book, telling your story to help others." Um, and I did tell her I'd get your links and everything to put it in there. And she says, "Thank you for the work that you're doing to stop fraudulent activity." And yeah, the rest of it, she was just saying, just let me know that she's still here for me, things like that. And I definitely appreciate that. During this journey of grief, I've met some pretty amazing people along the way. And so, yes, you put that over there saying thank you for everything that you're doing. Like, it's really important, especially, when we think about the fraudulent activities that people are implementing into the world. They're getting a lot better. They're getting a lot better about what they're doing. And so I think it's really, really important to keep an eye out on it and become aware of it, because they're going after our most vulnerable communities, which is our elderly. And even and I want to add this in there too. They're going after those people who have lost people as well, right? Because when you've lost people, you become very, very susceptible to feeling good about yourself. So if you're anything like me, I always said, you know what, this is not going to beat me, etc. And what do I need to do in order to prove that you can't beat me?
Right.
Luckily, I was smart enough to see things and go, yeah, this ain't for me. But I'm also very stubborn. I'd rather go out there and learn the things that I need to learn in order to get to where I need to get to, right? And so whatever that looks like, I'll be the one looking at the videos, reading the books, etc. Right? And I will go out there and fail 1,000 times just so I can get it right once. And so as you were speaking, what do you think motivates these individuals to even have the audacity to um, come after people like that, right? Come after the most vulnerable of our communities.
It a lot of it is generated by the same people that want to get something for nothing. I mean, they actually put a lot of work into it as far as their stories and everything they're doing, but they aren't doing any legitimate. Tony, they aren't doing a legitimate job. That and I can't really understand that. But there's a lot of them that are generated, and a lot of this, just like the point was made about the Iowa State Attorney General's office, they said they had even come on a tip and they chased it down and they found and broke it up. There was 600 people in the Philippines, and a lot of it was underage, and they were using them to scam and make money for them. So it's a money making ordeal, and there's a lot of them that do it in groups, and they're pushed to do it in groups. So there's that end of it, besides just the obvious people that are greedy and want to steal your money and make it their own.
Yeah.
So, but I think more and more I look at it, Tony. These things, and I found one group that was in a motel, and the person that confided in me and told me they were in a motel in Kansas City, and they were being put up, and there was a group of them, and they were scamming people on social media. And most of it was on Zangy, which is a platform. So and so these groups are pretty prevalent. They're being pushed. If some of it may even, just like the Philippine portion, may be part of the uh, trafficking and use of underage uh, to help out, and do that. So, and there's, the sex trafficking and all that too. That's all the stuff that's happening, and a lot of it's generated by our internet and social media, and it's amazing. I mean, I think that's most of it. They get pushed into it, and they get offered, even in that situation there. It could be people that don't have a meal, don't have a home, and they just offer them a motel, and that's basically was it, a motel and board as far as eating. So yeah, it's a downside of exactly why it came about. I think there's a lot of people that are individually greedy, but I think by the most part, Tony, I think it's groups. And then there's subversion of groups like different, political and stuff like that too. So, hey, there's a wide variety.
I get that. And I think social media makes it a lot easier for people to keep doing it. Like just within the last week, I've gotten friend requests. And what people don't understand, here's a way that you can find out if a person's account has been hacked. Go through, look at that account. If you know this individual, you know that they have several posts, right? They've probably been on social media for a couple of years. So they're going to have a whole line of posts that they've done. When a person has been hacked, you can go through and you'll scroll through, and what it'll give you 2-3 posts, then it says no posts available. That's a fraudulent account. Delete it. Do not accept it. Just delete it. Be done with it, right? Another one, what I find that people do, and I wait for it. People don't understand that. This is another thing. They will try to send you a friend request. You don't have to accept that friend request, but what it does is that they will give them access to your messenger. Your messenger is not going to give them access to any of your information. It just means that they can communicate to you. And a lot of times they'll start off and say, hey, have you heard about such and such? Now, if you know this individual, do they ever start off a conversation with that? And I will come back at them and go, oh, so yeah, have you heard about this account that's been hacked? Looks just like the one that you're using right now, considering the fact that I know the person. Delete and block. And then I report it. And they go, oh, you're just going to report my account? Yes, I am. Yes. Because I can't have you running around here, trying to get to the people, because I know a lot of people. I'm sorry. To give you access to that is wrong, right? Because that's what you're going to do. If I friend you, you're going to take access, you're going to go through my friends list, and you're going to start targeting it. I'm sorry, I can't have that. So, I'm on top of that.
And Tony,
things like that to be aware.
Tony, a lot of what's happening for them to get all the information is like contacts in your telephone. They pirate your accounts to get those contacts. And what's more prevalent besides Facebook, Instagram, X and TikTok, what's more prevalent right now and really growing fast is LinkedIn. Yeah. There's more scams that are being developed there, and scams even that I think they're trying to be maybe another item that's might be labeled a scam, but it's a legitimate scam. What they're trying to do is generate to say, it's a cold call, and you got to look at how many connections do they have. And if they've only got a handful, you say, wrong, and get rid of them, and delete and report. And the good ones have reporting, but there's ones out there that really don't. A lot of the social media platforms. Yeah. But they're taking and getting their own account and getting the information and trying to get information. In this case, LinkedIn does a lot of business with recruiting, and they get people's resumes and the contacts that are involved there, and they keep using them for their own gain.
Mhm.
And even the own game that hey, I just came across last night, a group that wanted to get your resume, and they said, we got this job and it's here and we'll send you the job description. And it had no idea that I knew where that place was, and they didn't even have it. They have the capability to do it. I've been across the whole U.S., Tony. So they said they used a reference for like Boardman, Oregon, and they didn't realize that Boardman, Oregon is maybe 2,000 people and doesn't have that kind of thing. So I said, no. And they wanted to, they wanted to redo your resume. So it was in these standards of all this stuff, you know, logistics and sales and I said, oh, thanks. But at least with LinkedIn, you can report them and it goes. They take care of it.
Yeah. What I found with Facebook is that I get these fraudulent accounts, and I report them. I've had them come back on at least 10 of them say, oh, we didn't see anything wrong with this account. What? Like, did you? Okay. So, what I've done? I've just, with people that come in, I people don't understand. I will go through and look at your profile, right? I want to make sure that you are who you say you are, one. And two, there's certain group of people that that I will allow into my space because of the work that I do. If you
Right.
have nothing to do with that work, I don't want anything to do with you because what are you doing? Like there's certain people like you stick with the people that you know, right? And
Yeah.
I want people that I can learn from and that can learn from me, right? And together we can figure out ways of networking and collaborating and building. I want to be able to support the people that are in my circle, right? And offer, open up the doors for opportunities for them to be able to um, grow and use social media as a tool to become successful. So I'm very, very picky about all of that. So I practice a lot of discernment when it comes down to it. It's just some people that I just don't need to have contact with, you know. So got to be very, very. You have to practice a lot of discernment with that, and be very, very careful about who you're interacting with because it only takes a matter of a second before a person. If you open up the doors for too long, they can just sneak right in and grab those things. That's why I'm a firm believer. I don't have my contacts from my phone on my social media.
Right.
I
Good.
don't. I don't have none of that. As a matter of fact, you would have to go through my email. You have to be careful which email you go through because you might get snagged. And I follow them. I do. I follow them. Like my system that I have, I'll put a certain email in because I know that there are scammers in there. And so I want them to go in through that email because what it does, it goes through my security system. And after that, it's
That's it.
keep doing it.
Yeah.
Keep doing it if you want to. Keep doing it.
It's unfortunate that we have to do that, but you've got to stay diligent.
You
That's
do.
the only thing.
You do. Yeah. Um, so yeah, we've talked about all of that. We've covered a lot of things, and so I guess my next question would be, uh, how can people find you in your book, Fred?
My book is on 84 different platforms, but really primarily the biggest ones are just that are, and all three. I don't have an Audible book yet, but I've got ebook, paperback, hardcover, and Amazon, of course, and Walmart and Barnes and Noble. I mean, those are the biggest ones that you can find it, and you can once you find that, you can actually click on the description, and it gives you a whole summary, actually, in 342 word summary of what the book is about,
Okay.
and that helps a lot. The biggest site I'm using now, and I talk about LinkedIn, but I'm using LinkedIn because it's searchable, not like Facebook or Instagram. I've got them on there, but LinkedIn gives you the links you can check on. Excuse me, you can see other podcasts, but and where to find it and other things. And I'm starting to generate, like I said, is put bullet items for a weekly update as far as what scams are out there. But LinkedIn is my site under Fred Simpson, and you can get on that and find out everything that has to do with it, plus a lot of other links. Key thing, Tony, and what I wanted to bring up is the other key links is who to contact if you have a problem. That is a misdirection that a lot of scammers like to keep you involved. And there's another scam involved for people to pick up and say, hey, yeah, you're going to help me. You're going to help me fix and get back on my Facebook account. Well, Facebook doesn't talk to people. So and I've had one person talking to the scammer, and they wanted them to send a money card and also turn off their computer, and they could remote in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I said, you hung up, right? And oh yeah. I said, but that's the kind of things they do, and it's really. But like I said, I'm building LinkedIn because it's searchable and you can find my book. But the other key to this, Tony, is I wrote it under a pen name.
Mm-hmm.
My pen name is Jameson Lyon, and that is searchable anywhere. You say Cyber Time with Fred Simpson or Jameson Lyon is the author that's linked to.
Okay.
So because of the nature, the nature. That's why I went for a pen name, Tony. I went because the nature being scammers and hackers and trying to keep your identity, secret. That's why I used a pen name. But then you look at it and you say, wow, they could find out easy enough. But it's just like everything. You gotta be diligent. So
yeah, most definitely.
Right.
So I guess my next question would be, as we begin to wrap this up, if you had a superpower, Fred, what would it be?
If I had what?
If you had a superpower, what would it be?
I really would, everybody to look within themselves and ask other, because it's very hard for people to ask for help, and to understand that you can get close, and you need to get close with God and His understanding. That's what a lot of the link with Alcoholics Anonymous is they call it a greater power or whatever you want, but to me it becomes God, and God's there to help us, and He is the one person that can help carry you. It's just like I said about the footprints in the sand. I'm sure everybody's seen that parable, and to understand that the phrase saying, God, why hast thou forsaken me? Because he's seeing one set of footprints after two. He says, I haven't, my son. I am carrying you. So as to be able to trust in God and try to help other people. And that's a lot of what we need to do with life. We've got children that we need to take care of, and that we also need to, help other people. And, whether you've got random acts of kindness, and I call directed acts of kindness, where you purposely, and it comes upon you, is to help somebody out. And whatever that is, whether it's emotionally or just communicating, or, $5 or $10, they may need that, or a meal, is that's what we need to look at and be our legacy, if you will.
Love that. I love that. And with that being said, everybody, guys, we're going to wrap up this episode of Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. I did put the Cyber Time, so if you want to go check out his book, go check it out. Cyber Time. He's the author, and he's on LinkedIn, so connect with him over there. And be educated on what you're going through. Grief doesn't have to be a road that you have to go through alone. And there are people out there that's willing to take advantage of you. Talk to the people who have been there, that have walked that walk, that can help you notice those signs, but also help you be more aware of what's going on out there in the world. And with that being said, guys, if this is your first time tuning in and you made it all the way to the end and you have not already, do me a favor, head on over to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time that you drop a new episode. Every time that we drop a new episode. Like I said, subscribe, like, comment, share. You guys see it down at the bottom. And with that being said, guys, having a great, amazing day. I love you. Thank you for your continued support. Fred, thank you again for being on the show today. And we're going to have to do this again, do some catch up, because you got a lot of things going on. You got a lot of things going on. And definitely want to make sure that people got the information. Anybody that's looking for somebody to help you in your recovery, Fred's the guy that you want to talk to. And we're going to get you, as always, man, we're going to keep bringing conversations to get you the help that you need and deserve. I am Tony Lynch. This is going to conclude this episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. We're going to see you guys in the next one. Have an amazing day. Peace.
Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome.